Do you ever feel like you're either all in or completely just done, can't cope with it? Like you can't find that middle space between focus and rest. It's either hyper productive or totally shut down. Something I've struggled with quite a bit. And I've realized that the pattern isn't laziness or lack of motivation. It's often a nervous system pattern. And especially if, like me, you have ADHD. So this is something I've discovered recently. I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, so I'm kind of looking at it through a different lens as well. Um, but at the moment, I maybe have had a bit of good positive feedback recently, and it should be sitting as that's a really positive thing and it's driving me forward. But instead, I've been feeling like I've been a bit stuck and like everything was stalling, and that's been kind of like weighing on me as well. So emotionally, that's been weighing on me. And the first instinct I have in that situation is to pull back and hide because I don't want people to see that I'm struggling. And then I think about, well, maybe actually one of the things I can do to really drive everything forward is to really lean in and push harder. Um, and that can work, but it's getting that balance between leaning into what I need to do and over pushing, over exerting. So then I end up giving up anyway. And having this ADHD diagnosis, I think, has probably made me look at things in a different way. So it's helped me see that what often looks like inconsistency in my actions and in my behaviour is often my nervous system just trying to regulate between overstimulation and depletion. So it's starting to get my nervous system into balance. That's kind of like the most important thing. And this video is really just about the middle ground and how to stay engaged without really burning yourself out completely. And so let's talk about the nervous system's pendulum. So yesterday I was talking a little bit about how, I think it was yesterday, but how we know that we're not going to stay perfectly regulated all of the time. And so having ADHD can amplify the sensitivity to nervous system swings, but we will have nervous system swings. And so we might go from hyperfocus to collapse or excitement to fatigue, and we'll all shift from one to the other on a regular basis. And it can feel like a lack of discipline, like we're not keeping ourselves doing this, or we're not keeping ourselves in this state. But it's how our body often manages stimulation. So when we have positive stuff going on and we get excited, now obviously one of the things to think about is excitement is very, very close to fear. So it's very much like the fight or flight being triggered. So you've got a part of that sympathetic nervous system when you've got excitement is actually being activated. And so the body can then get overstimulated and it can then come down into more of a collapse stage as a response to essentially fight or flight, although it's not actually fight or flight because it's excitement, but it feels the same in the body, and the way that the brain responds to it may be very similar as well. And when we don't notice the swing, we try to kind of control it and push ourselves back. We push harder when actually what we need to do is just pause and just check like where we are and what's going on, and allow ourselves to come back to a more balanced state before we take the next action. So one of the things to do is to work on how you can notice your tipping point. So when are you going to shift over from one sort of hyper focus maybe to rest, or excitement to fatigue? When are we going to switch over? Because as you start to become aware, you can stop the big shift from happening. So you can notice, say, early cues. So if you're noticing, and this is where it all comes down to, it isn't just about nervous system regulation, it's about bringing the mindfulness in as well. So that I like to teach about Buddhism, and the mindfulness from Buddhism ties into being mindful of our bodies. So being mindful of, is our jaw tense? What's happening with our breath? How are we feeling? Like, are we feeling everything's a little bit more irritating than normal? Or do we maybe feel a little bit restless? And just starting to tune into that and understand, like, how are we actually feeling? And then understanding that if we're starting to feel these things, right, they're not failures. They're just signals in your system saying, well, do you know what? I might be a little bit full right now. This might be the time to pause and reset and come back into a calmer state. And this is you listening. It's about you tuning in and bringing that mindfulness into your everyday life. And when you have that awareness, it kind of gives you the choice. So you can choose to either keep pushing, or you can regulate and return in the clearer state of mind. But you have that option because you're aware of it. And it is about bringing that mindfulness in. And that might mean that you stop yourself every half an hour, say, and just tune into your body. And it only has to take 30 seconds. Tune into your body. what's happening there for you, and then see if there's anything that you need to shift, change, reset, or maybe just even do a reset just for the hell of it so that you're training up the body and building that vagal tone. And then it's about redefining leaning in. So what does it mean when you lean into something? It doesn't necessarily mean that you do more of everything. It might mean having greater presence or having greater structure or more care for yourself. Or it could actually be that you then choose the activities that are going to take you in a specific direction, but you assess the other activities and whether they're worth doing. So it's about how you can change your focus and your direction, not necessarily lumping a load more stuff onto it when you lean in. And especially if you've got an ADHD mind, balance doesn't necessarily come from stillness. It comes from having rhythmic switches, so you have something else to do. So like for me, if I find it really hard to focus on work and my mind's all over the place, I might go and do something physical, like go down to my allotment or do some decorating in my house, because that will just shift my focus, right? But I'll still be doing stuff. And I prefer to do, say, something like that than try and shift the focus of my mind too much, because my mind can sometimes be very active. So if I do something physical that involves me being present in what I'm doing, so like gardening, for example, I find it really allows me to be present in what I'm doing. It shifts me out of that mind-whirring anxiety stage. So that is a form of reset for me, and it's me understanding that I know that will reset me. And so it might not necessarily mean that you're sitting there doing nothing as a reset. It might just be that you find the activity that switches you from feeling that way into feeling a different way. And that taking that break, doing something different, it's not a delay, it's what allows you that work to remain sustainable. So it stops you reaching that point where you give up on that task, or you drop it, or you go and do something else because your brain is overloaded. You've actually given it a pause and a break, so it's easier to come back to it. So as a practice, I've got a mini regulation reset for you. So if you're starting to feel that edge between focus and fatigue, you can try this. I guess it's just when you're starting to think, it's just not happening for me. So if you're on a screen or whatever task it is that you're doing, look away from that task so you're not actually looking at it. And then take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale through the mouth. And then let your eyes wander around the room, slowly and gently. And you're literally just moving your gaze around the room to signal safety, just noticing what's there, observing what you can see as you're looking around the room. And you might even want to name the odd thing that you can see, and you're just allowing that safety to come in, slow eye movements. And then, pay attention to your shoulders. If you notice, I've noticed quite often that when I'm stressed, my shoulders tend to come up here. So just allow them to relax down a little bit. And feel your body where it meets the chair or the floor. Just feel where it is. So if you're sitting in a chair, just feel that sensation of your body connecting with the chair. So again, you're tuning into physical sensations, anything that's right here and right now. And you can silently say to yourself, I can slow down and still move forward. And at the same time, observe what's happening in your body. And if you notice that there are lots of those signs of tension and they're kind of hanging around, maybe this is the time for you to say, well, and you can even ask your body, what do you need from me right now? And that may be a rest. It may be a change of scenery. It may be a slightly different task to just shift things up for a bit, and just start to be aware of that and allow yourself to make those shifts. So maybe there's a different task you can do that is just going to change the way you feel mentally, and you can come back to that task later, and just really tuning in to your body and what it needs. And it feels like a surprisingly simple technique to use, but it's actually how we train the body to believe that rest doesn't mean failure, because we actually are, it's like toning the body up. It's called, often you hear people talk about vagal tone. When we take these rests, essentially we're building resilience into the vagus nerve, into our nervous system. And that allows us to take all those breaks more easily and to be more confident in that way. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I talk a lot about how I used to believe that rest was something you earned. And it's still something I'm working on, because I still have an element of that to the way that I live. And that I have this long list, and if I achieve all this stuff, then I can allow myself to rest. And when I feel like that, I notice the exhaustion starting to creep in, even as I'm saying that, because I can feel how that feels in my body to push through all those things before I rest. And the truth is that my body doesn't thrive on all or nothing. It doesn't work like that. It actually thrives on a rhythm and on moving and flowing and switching and changing and doing different things. So it's tuning into that and starting to understand it. And that's why I created the sacred pause. It's what it's really all about. It's learning to live, work, and create in a way that kind of honors your body's natural cycles, even when the world tells you to kind of push harder, do more, work, achieve more, fit more in. It's about listening to what your body really needs. So if you'd like some of those tools, the nervous system resets and rituals and all of those different things, there's loads available in my free group, The Sacred Pause. I will drop the link in the description, and I'd love to see you on the inside. And if you do like this video, remember to like and subscribe.